All right.
Hi everyone.
Good evening.
That-
Finally.
That time's a charm.
I know.
Sorry, there was a bit of a technical difficulty.
Yes, we're still trying to figure out a few things here that didn't quite work. But we hope we are fully live now.
We are live.
Yes, perfect. All right. How is everybody doing?
Happy hump day.
Oh,
We learned that last week, didn't we?
I know.
David?
Different hump day that I thought, but yes.
Oh, David. In this
How-
context, it's only Wednesdays that is hump day.
I know. Perfect. How's everybody doing? Oh no, we're so sorry. I know you
Yes.
didn't miss anything. It
Yeah,
was us.
It was us.
Yes.
Last minute technical difficulty.
So now let's start actually with our tradition now of opening the wine. We hope that you guys all have your wine ready. Today's actually
I said
premiere.
Tea, but hey.
Tea or wine or water. Today's actually a premiere because for the first time we're premiere because we are gonna have some white wine today.
Do not go into the history of this wine, David.
Okay, anyway,
Just pour it.
it's from South Africa. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That I'm allowed to say.
Any South Africans in the house?
Yay! All right.
He
Oh,
said what? He doesn't even know the wine he's pouring. David. Why did you think this
okay.
wine
I'll
was-
take the premiere thing
Today was
back.
a premiere.
I could have guessed by reading the actual type of wine I was getting. I don't know why I thought it's even a dark bottle. It makes sense.
No, even I didn't pick
And you
it
know the
up.
funny thing is I put it in the freezer now because I thought it was white wine.
That shows how much of wine
Oops.
drinkers we are.
Oops.
It's
Sorry,
true
guys.
from South Africa, though.
That was correct. It is clearly red wine. Well, I guess then we're gonna have a premiere next week. I guess now we really have to have
Oh my
white wine.
gosh, yeah.
So sorry for that. Anyway.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
cheers to another Wednesday like video.
We're going to talk
The
about
red
this
wine.
after the live. Cheers. This is hilarious.
Cheers to all of you.
Oh, it tastes nice, actually.
It is good. Of course, we always have good wines.
Yes.
And
Even
next
if
week
we
we're gonna
can't-
have white wine.
Yeah, even if we can't distinguish if it's white or red, it's always
Okay,
good.
okay.
No,
This is not gonna
this-
stick for the
This
rest
is
of.
not just about you. It's
In
about
general.
me who didn't even notice that you had a red wine bottle.
True.
But anyway,
So, how are you guys doing? What do we got? Istanbul, Turkey, Israel, Uganda. Brilliant, amazing. Stellenbosch, yes. Well, it's not quite, is it? I think it is actually from Stellenbosch. You're right.
oh wait, fun fact here: I did spend the Christmas in Stellenbosch.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
And it was
How was
cool.
that?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That was
Fantastic.
fantastic. Very good. Zimbabwe, perfect. Everybody's in the house. Brilliant.
Hi. Okay, so let's go. Let's just dive right into the video.
Absolutely.
Today's topic, as you guys know, is who controls the finances and, you know,
We're going to talk about the money.
The mullah.
The mullah.
we've addressed this in one or two videos, but, you know, this is the first time that is live, and who knows, the truth might actually come out since
I
there's
know
no
this-
editing.
These live sessions are dangerous. Let me just tell
It's
you.
dangerous. It's where you get the real tea, guys, because there's no editing, there's no cutting, there's no, I've thought about that and I don't want to include this in this video. No, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
literally word vomit. So, so while we are, should we, what's the,
Let's get right into it. I mean,
Okay.
look, I think obviously, like with every topic, I think we do every week. These are things that we have certainly found are extremely important in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very important, I think, to have a happy relationship, but also just to make it work on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
So, I think, I can't.
finance is a huge one.
Exactly, and finances and money, it might not always necessarily be of such a big topic in the beginning, especially if you get to know each other or everything is rosy and kind of the really exciting the first few days. But the longer you're in a relationship, of course, the next steps you take, whether it gets to engagement or marriage or something, right? It is super important to take this very seriously. I think,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
especially even then when you're married with kids, the day-to-day running of the home, you really need to talk about the money. So I think I'm just going to start with my perspective about money and the way that I was raised. And then you bring in your own perspective, and then we can talk about how we've managed to navigate our
Balance the
way
two.
through this
Yes,
tricky topic in
Of
this
course,
marriage.
Of course.
So for me personally, I'm Nigerian, all of you know this by now. And so I was raised in a culture that kind of believed that the man would pay for everything and not the woman. So the man kind of took it as his responsibility to provide for his family, and that was taken quite literal. Like, all of his money would typically go towards, especially education,
right,
and the monthly upkeep. And the women would usually, or the mothers would usually have their money, although significantly less than what their partners would earn, because I mean, hello. Anyway, I don't want to go into that, but anyway, the woman would earn significantly less, and then her money would be put towards things like giving the kids, a little bit of pocket money and all that stuff. So I was kind of raised in that way. My mom, she's always been a hard worker. She has a career in law. She has her own businesses, and she's an investor. So she's always had her money, but we grew up in a way that my dad paid for everything, and that included my education. So fast forward to, meeting David,
we're speaking of the third person now.
No. Fast forward to meeting you, but before we even got married, all of my expenses were being covered by my dad. So it came a point, especially 2013, when we did our traditional wedding. That was the first time that I was unofficially cut from the family finances, because that same mentality that the man takes care of everything was, of course, the same mentality my dad had when, after 2013 Christmas, there was no money that was given to me going back home. Or I suppose coming back home to Europe. He didn't give me any money, but I kind of read between the lines that meant, well, you're now your husband's responsibility. But anyway, so then that led us to a very tricky area where obviously David's coming from a completely different background, and I'm coming from a different background, and I don't have any money.
I think. I mean, obviously let's say the general upbringing when it comes to finances was kind of discussed prior to that, and we were aware, of course, of those kind of very clear cultural differences, and I think also just generally our statuses in each other's society, right? We knew that, but I don't think until that point we really understood how this might ultimately, of course, affect us or impact us, and what it would mean really for the relationship going forward, right? In practical terms, I mean, it's always, you can talk about these things in kind of in theory, but like how would it actually then be in reality? And that was certainly, I think, the first kind of real test in a way, or situation where we had to really sit down, like, okay, this is now real, and then kind of had to face with, okay, so how are we going to deal with this now? Like, how are we going to do this?
And I'll tell you the one moment that led us to having this very important, very serious conversation is, like I said, coming back after my traditional wedding and not having any money. I was still in med school, so I wasn't working. David, was working, but he wasn't rich or anything. We were getting by. We were able to pay our rent and all that. But because you didn't know that my parents no longer gave me money.
Sure, actually, in the beginning, you're right.
You didn't know. Yeah. And I felt so proud. Like, I had a lot of pride, to tell you. I still do. But especially around the way that I was raised. Like, my dad, even though his mentality is very much, I will, pay for everything and the woman doesn't have to, which a lot of people in this society might consider very, sexist. But his mentality, he really raised us girls as very strong women. So I'll give him that. And he raised us to be very confident and not depend on any man for anything. So having that sort of pride and coming into a relationship where I now had to basically tell you that I didn't have any money and I was broke. So I could, for the life of me, I couldn't get myself to tell you that my dad has stopped giving me money and I am actually broke. So all of my bills, I had obviously all my direct debits for all of my bills that eventually at some point started bouncing because there was no money in my account. And the one time you, accidentally, or intentionally, I don't know, but you opened one of the phone bills, or you opened one of my letters and you realized it was like a bill. And then you said, exactly. How come you've never told me? David said to me, how come you've never told me that you wanted money? And I said to him,
needed money rather, at this point.
And I said to him, how come you never knew that I needed money?
Why did you never ask? He actually said, like, why did you never ask me, right?
Yeah. So that was the first time we were confronted with having that exact conversation about money.
Yeah, and it certainly wasn't, though, still, I mean, isn't a conversation, this is a topic that never really ends, right? I mean, the way you grow in a relationship, you know, also, of course, that topic has to consistently kind of be revised, I think, because, I mean, that kind of initial conversation, or even the conversations at the time, didn't of course fully solve everything yet, right?
No.
But I think ultimately what we then learned over time, because of course that was also, we were at an age there where we just kind of, I had just started working maybe a couple of years ago, it wasn't very long, you know, yet obviously in the relationship, you were still in my work life, you were still finishing your med school at the time, you know, so I think it was also early in our careers respectively. That of course once then you get into a career and you know start earning money, etc. Of course these conversations evolve around money,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
And I think we really had to find the kind of common ground, you know, because in the way obviously the way I grew up and where I come from, it's usually pretty much like, I mean, I would like to think pretty much equal, or at least in my family is very much on an open topic. There's no really one person is supposed to do that and you know owns that or something. So for me it was almost normal that look, of course we're in this together, right? If we need money as a couple or one of us needs money, of course you will, like, let's talk about it, let's address it. That's why at the time I was so surprised why you didn't let me know like this whole time. But so we had to figure that out, our kind of the way we looked at relationships when it comes to money.
I think exactly. So how we resolved that particular situation was me saying, well, you know, because I still have this pride of asking a man for money, let's just agree that every month you kind of put an amount of direct debit into my account. So that was a common ground where David then started paying me, my sponsor.
Please.
Chairman started paying for my bills. Anyway, David put me on direct debit for like...
Put me on direct debit, that sounds so wrong.
For a bit, until... so fast forward to... it sounded wrong. Fast forward to when I then started working as a doctor, I started earning my own salary, and almost at the same time, because if you remember, I found out I was pregnant a day before I found out I had gotten a job. So it kind of happened about the same time that we then went into this stage of both addressing how finances are going to go from here on out, since we are now earning, / how we're going to then save for our future child that's on the way. So that was kind of like when we had the first proper equality conversation around money.
It's true. I think so. And the way I think that we've now over resolved, there are a couple of key pieces for me, right? Number one, of course, is, let's say, the operational piece. Let's say who is in charge. For me, that's more like a term. Okay, maybe who is more inclined or more experienced or more just like maybe has a stronger affinity to numbers and doing all this money, right? It's just who, let's say, take care of the bills. Okay, who makes sure that our bills are paid every month? That is for me kind of who controls or the money. But there's the bigger piece, and in our case that's me. But that's just because I just genuinely, I'm more used to it or something. I don't know, more, just have a stronger. You have other strength, and I have maybe one of my strengths might be in that field, But that just means I only take care of making sure payments are being made, right?
Yeah.
So,
but prior to then, I think the stage in between is even discussing how we then decided who was gonna pay for what and how we were gonna,
Yeah, but very true.
Out.
Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, I mean, so I think in terms of payments, we always said that we obviously wanted equal. Now, equal in many cases doesn't necessarily always means 50-50 when it comes to the amount one pay, right? And I think this makes complete sense. It's about that each person has the same amount left every month.
Yeah.
Because it's ever really the case, or hardly ever the case, that both earn exactly the same, which is fine. And this might shift over time, right? But ultimately we said we want equality from the point of view that both have the same amount available.
Yeah. So we wanted equality, but for us to approach equality, or for us to arrive at equality, we had to approach it through equity.
Right.
And in this case, like, you were earning significantly higher than I was at the time of like my first year of starting a job. So if our rent, for example, was like 100 quid, it'd be unfair for me to like bring 50 and David brings 50, knowing that I earn considerably less.
Yeah.
So we kind of worked it out, David being the spreadsheet master. We kind of like worked
Google
it out.
Sheets all the way.
So we actually opened up a Google Sheet and then kind of made a list of all of our cost for the for the month, like our running cost and everything that we had to pay for the month, including getting ready for the arrival of Kian. And then based on my salary and David's salary, we worked out how much I would contribute to make it equal. But of course, it wasn't the same amount of...
Equal, I think simply put, equal does not refer to the amount you pay. Equality, it refers to the amount that is left in your account after paying the contribution.
No, but that was just our own personal decision at that stage. Of course. It's not like we plan to do this for the rest of our lives, but at that stage, it was 100%. Important, also to me, to us, that was,
That's fair.
Yeah,
that was fair, absolutely,
that we took.
And in terms of, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Also, I've been seeing a few of you kind of referring to this already. I mean, the other then, of course, second step, so that was about the, let's say, the flow of money and, the amount and so forth. Obviously, in terms of accounts, right? Because that's another big piece always, and I've been seeing already a couple of you guys asking for this, and obviously we're going to go into this, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a joint account? Do you have only a joint account or whatnot, right? So, first off, I would say it's very important, I think, and I think we both agree, that each person, of course, still maintains the level of financial freedom that everybody desires, right? So I don't believe, for example, it makes sense or it's a good idea to put everything in one account or put everything in joint accounts.
Yeah.
Right? That's first of all. So both of us have our own individual private accounts, number one. Which I think is super important.
Yeah.
Okay? Then we have 3 joint accounts. Okay? One is our kind of bills, to cover like where we put money together to cover all those
monthly costs,
the monthly reoccurring costs. The second is a kids account.
The kids account,
right? Exactly.
But not for the trust fund or anything. It's literally for their creche, their upkeep, their nappies, anything that the kids will require in a month. We've kind of over time just come up with an average. Sometimes we're left with a bit more in that account, but we've come up with an average, and that's what that account serves.
Correct. Yeah. And then the third one is our mortgage account, investment/mortgage account.
Yeah, investment/mortgage.
Where all the kind of payments or whatever in regards to mortgage and investments.
Exactly. So it could be a case where we then, from that account, if we decide, we want to buy this stocks or like recently Facebook stocks or oil or something, we go out of that account to make the investment as a family. Now, that being said, our private accounts, we still run anything I desire to invest in or I wish to invest in, I would run from my personal account, and so will David. And it's also, I think the need to have a separate account, or the importance, is when it comes to things like little gestures or big surprises. Like, for example, a birthday present or a Christmas purchase. Like, I would hate to use the joint account and then you probably get an alert or see a notification of where I've spent the money. Like, that, I think that kind of just takes a little element of the, surprise. I don't know why my shoulders
I don't know either. Like, what kind of surprise are you talking about? No, but it's very true. It's very true. But I think ultimately, right, over or underlying all of this, what it comes down to, like whether you have that account, one account, 2, 3, whatever accounts, ultimately, I think what is the most important thing about that piece is transparency, right?
Yeah.
And I guess also clear communication, because ultimately, again, as long as, for example, in our case, yes, I might be managing these accounts from a point of view that I make payments or whatever, but at any point in time, Adanna has full access to everything. And that transparency, I think is key. As long as you don't feel, I think finances becomes a problem in a relationship or a marriage if one person feels that the other side is sort of like hiding something or, not being honest or open, or there's a lack of clarity, like, the family needs money, you say you don't have money, but then again I see you doing this, or, there's always this feeling like you're hiding something from you, there's no clarity to me, there's no transparency around it, right?
Exactly, transparency.
So as long as that exists and both are in agreement, right, and both feel like, we know what we as a family, we're not together in this, especially once we start having kids, like that is this center, right? As long as that is being taken care of and we each still have our own freedoms,
Yeah, and I think that just borders on what we mentioned in one of the live videos, secrecy versus privacy.
Yes.
So in this case, it's no secret that we have our individual accounts.
Yeah.
It's no secret. But I think the privacy is like me coming up or like invading David's privacy or vice versa. Is like me coming up to him to say, how much is in your savings account right now? It's like, what's my business there? Like, we've already come, which we do regularly. We have like talks about our finances. Right, it's not a weekly thing or a bi-weekly thing, but it does occur regularly. And we come together to make sure that we're able to address any cost, any new cost that has creeped up, whether it's like someone else that we've, an employee, a freelancer we've hired or something like that. We address the cost and we make sure that our monthly budget, we're both contributing enough to cover the budget. And then that being said, like as long as that's sorted and the kids' funds are sorted, you don't need to come and ask me how much is now in your savings left or how much, like that's literally none of my business. Like I do not desire to know that. Neither do you. And
and there's also, of course, over time enough trust built to understand and know that the other person is taking the family seriously. Because in as much as you might have savings, of course, and I think we were not even too long ago we talked about, like, if of course there's ever a need in the family, both understand of course that if we have something available at the time, or we better have, of course, right, I mean, we better be saving something, then of course we all come together and to put it in, or if one person has a bit more for whatever reason, right, if Adanna has more, she'll put it in rather to cover whatever comes up, right? So there's also needs to be, of course, that level of trust and understanding that the other person, even though maybe you have your private account, that the other person is acting, fairly responsible. But that of course needs to be there in a relationship anyway, I think. Right, regardless.
Exactly. And so when you say fairly responsible, do you mean individually how we spend?
Individually as well. Both sides, I think, at some point have that maturity,
Yeah. I think for me, when you talk about the transparency or taking each other seriously, it's like, no matter how much we have in our separate accounts, even though you don't ask me and I don't ask you on a regular basis, we know. I think we have that understanding that if an emergency arises and all of the funds that we jointly have / insurance and everything is not enough to cover that emergency, without a doubt, we both trust that we're not going to be secretly hiding money that needs to solve a family problem because it's my money. And that's the difference. Whereas if there's no family emergency and we do have an extra bit of cash to spend, I don't expect you, quite frankly, to come to me to say, you have a new bag, how much did you spend on that bag? Or I'm going to ask you, how much did you spend on a watch or a shoe? I think that is the respecting each other's privacy when it comes to money.
Exactly. And in our case, I actually remember even like I think the best case is really when you almost want to share updates around. So I remember, for example, my last promotion. Right? I mean, it's not a case that like Adanna's first question or any of the question actually she would ever ask is like, well, so how much money do you now earn? Right? Not at all. But I actually even wanted to almost share this out of excitement or something. Like you get a piece of paper there with all the details and whatnot. Like I was actually like, look, I mean, this is look how great this is. And
exactly. And
so
he's showing me
it
that.
It wasn't about her needing to know, or I didn't have to show it to her, and she would have never asked me. Right? What does it mean now for your earnings? Right? But that was, at least I remember that I was very keen to show her. So.
So and I think that's just the openness that you need in finances. But I do recognize that this is a very tricky topic, and course. I think a lot of the influence comes from culture, because even, I mean, right now there's still a lot of couples that one person takes on the responsibility of like finances and the other person takes on the responsibility of managing the household. And I don't think, we're not sitting here to say what works best. Whatever floats anybody's boat, you can do it.
Absolutely.
But for me, I think I've recognized, not entirely from experience, from other stories and people around me, plus also my experience, that when a woman contributes financially, not even just the housework that we're already stereotyped to even take responsibility for, but when a woman contributes financially, believe me, there is an added level of respect that comes in. I believe that. I don't know what you
I personally, I know, of course, this is very subjective now, of course. Personally, for me, of course, in our case, I didn't need that. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Personally, that's just honestly me, but I completely understand and know exactly where you're coming from, what you mean. It depends so much, of course, on the respective partner, but I would say in certain cultural settings, maybe, to say, where it's traditionally really clearly cut and clearly kind of assigned roles, let's say, there, it really makes, I think, a huge difference.
But you know something else that I've noticed as well? which is very unspoken. That a lot of these cultures that kind of heavily requires the man to like provide financially, it's actually a stressor for the men.
Of course.
But they're also, when we maybe you talk about like
pride, right?
Yeah.
Ego and stress.
Yeah. But you talk about the maybe toxic masculinity of I'm not gonna admit that my financial responsibility is weighing down on me. But it does happen in a lot of relationships. And likewise for the women who probably may have been raised to think your husband's responsibility, especially when it comes to finances, you know, it could be, the change could be one that the man starts talking openly about how much of a burden this is and how it affects his ability to even show any, you know, romantic gestures towards his wife. That's one. Maybe. And the women who are working, a lot of women now are, you know, in very good, high-paying positions, but you find that maybe that doesn't necessarily translate into their household when it comes to financial contribution. So if women can, you know, kind of be willing or wanting to kind of give more. I feel like that's creating the equality when it comes to partnership.
Overall high level of respect across the board.
Across the board.
Possible,
it does bring a high level of
I mean,
respect.
I think it goes a little bit to your point earlier, right? Of course, we do understand this. I mean, you said, I think everybody, whatever you obviously should do whatever you want. We're not not trying to tell you what to do. We're just sharing what we are doing, right? Honestly. So you do what you obviously want to do, and if you're okay with a certain situation, brilliant. Perfect, right? Then also there's not going to be an issue, I think, but more often than not, it's the other way around. Where either one partner doesn't feel to have the kind of the power to address it or talk about it, or it's maybe societally or culturally not acceptable. But I think also, and this is probably the most kind of where I'm most keen to, I think maybe for people to kind of listen to at least what we're doing is for those who kind of could talk about it but might not feel they don't want to ruin almost like in an early stage relationship, you know, with talk about something like this. They feel maybe that might alienate the other side or something, right? I think not underestimating how important finances is in a relationship. And not again, it's not one of those things I think we said in the last video before, like not on the first date. Like that's what I mean. You know, of course not. But if you realize or believe, okay, this could be something a little more serious, and you really want to test or see the other side whether there could be a fit, right? You have to address kind of how they see finances or money in a relationship, because it can actually be a real, I don't want to say maybe kind of relationship breakup, but it can in many cases. You know, it really can. And
I think as I kind of mentioned before, I really do think it's one of the factors that kind of brings you up to, you know, to an equal level as your partner, that all of the responsibilities are approached with equality, even though in that kind of discussion you realize we all bring in our strengths and weaknesses. Like you said, in this case, you're very good at management. Well, I'm very good at management too, but you're better. You're better at management. So as far as like controlling the accounts, like overseeing the accounts,
like budgeting and forecasting,
all that stuff. So you do it and make sure that all of the bills are covered. But I have 100% access to
100%
to that.
100%.
And I think if we go back to the stage of maybe dating and early stage relationship, I think one way for women to kind of start testing the other person's or the man's idea around money is to offer to pay for things on dates as well. Like you can't go on a date and expect, you know, I'm talking, I know that a lot of women don't do it now, but I'm just bringing old school traditional mentality of the same way that it is now that men are still the only ones who propose to women. You know, it's the same mentality that men were the ones who typically would be expected to pay on a date. But right now that we're trying to achieve this sort of like, you know, equality in a marriage and a relationship, now that would be a good time to say like, let me be the one to pay for this date, or let me take it and see how he reacts. So you already now know what you're stepping into.
Very true. Yes, no, absolutely.
So maybe that's us and our finances in a nutshell. I mean,
and it's a never-ending story. Don't get us wrong. We never just sit down once and figure it all out. Things change in life. You know, you make these decisions as a couple, as a family, right? And you always have to, I think, review and revisit those kind of things. But I think for now we found a very good balance, I think.
I think it's a good balance. And also the fact that like we've come into this with like taking into consideration that I'm an entrepreneur, meaning that whilst we can make our budget and contributions based on monthly, you know, income, that's very difficult for me because every month varies. So of course, it's gonna when we then make a calculation and we're able to come up with a new average for me, we will always come back to the drawing board to say, okay, how can we change?
This is where doing spreadsheets and being a little bit of nerdy kind of makes sense, because at the end of the day, the numbers and the formulas are all there. You just put in the new number and immediately will give you kind of, that's where organization and kind of management kind of becomes very, very handy. You don't have to do, reinvent the wheel every month, right?
Yeah.
You have everything prepared, you put in the numbers, and you kind of know, based on what you want to achieve. That's always, what's your end goal? What are you trying to achieve? In our case, we wanted to achieve, that we're being treated fairly and equally for what we do.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
So we created a kind of a formula, if you want. In this case, it is actually a formula in the sheets or an Excel sheet, and that kind of helps you, kind of guide the way. The same for savings. If you have a goal in mind, right, or investing, okay, this is, I don't know, by the end of this year, I want to invest, or I want to be able to invest X amount, right? You break it down from there backwards, Okay, so that means now every month, so again, put the formula in or whatever, and, kind of moves it automatically, which is kind of handy.
You sound so happy talking about this formula.
I love it. Efficiency and automation for me are just like two big things.
Because you're German.
I'm all about this. German and working in tech, so I guess, Anyway, sorry.
Okay. Anyway, so that's us in a nutshell.
Yes.
I think we're just gonna read comments,
Absolutely.
We want to know what you guys are doing in your respective relationships, and if you have any questions, we're just gonna read through it now and answer.
If there's anything from your end around finances,
so the first question is what do you think about prenups?
What do we think about it?
Okay.
Well,
do you know what?
I have my opinion, but
do you have your opinion? I have my opinion about prenups as well.
Yes, I know you do.
Yeah. So let me tell you, before I got married, in fact, nobody could have convinced me to get married without a prenup. Literally, well, nobody except David. Nobody.
Until I came.
And I think it stemmed from the sort of just the horror that I surrounded myself with when it came to like failed marriage, because it's like a contract. Like when you get into an agreement or a conversation with someone and they pop over an NDA or they pop you a contract and you're not looking at what you're signing, yada yada yada. Like a contract comes into life mostly when there's problems.
Yeah,
like when everything is fine.
In
fact, only when there's problems. When everything's fine, hakuna matata. When things are not fine, and then you're. David,
sorry.
Should we actually start this?
No, go ahead.
Like when things are not going well, that's when you either say, "Thank God I had this contract signed," or you're like, "FML, WTF." So that's why for me, I really thought like there's no way I could get into a marriage without a prenup. And then, the ironic thing.
Yes.
The ironic thing?
No, tell me.
That I was coming into this marriage broke.
Right. Okay, well.
So what the hell was I signing? What the hell was I...
My view, to kind of jump in there perfectly timed, is two things. I mean, prenup, yes, your points are all completely right. A prenup obviously is, in my view, first of all, only really important if you have something really big to lose, right? I mean, if you already maybe come from a very, very wealthy background, okay, or otherwise rich or something, that's really, I think, usually when you want a prenup. I mean, if you're a very average person, with an average job or whatnot, like, I mean, what really are you afraid to lose, right? That's number one. And of course, then there's this kind of more emotional side of things or whatever. Like, for me, it's like, if you really ever make the commitment or feel like, okay, I want to get married to X person, in my view, and obviously I have not yet been exposed to major kind of or this kind of, as you described, difficult situations or something, but in my view, why then would you need a prenup, right? It kind of already assumes, or there's a reason you want a prenup, because you already probably there's some signs or some reason for you to doubt this will really last. If you generally think this will last, right?
Okay.
At least in the moment. I understand, of course, life changes, and again, I think a lot of it comes also then like, do you feel like you have something to lose? But for me, it's like, that already for me is a sign. It's like, well, I'm already kind of assuming this might fail.
No,
that's how I look at it.
I don't still agree,
Fine.
Of course, I ended up not signing the prenup because I'm broke. Like, what am I? Well, I was broke. Like, what am I signing prenup? But anyway, that's just a joke. The fact is, I don't believe that because I keep saying this thing. I know I sound like a pessimist when I say that every failed marriage started from a place of heads over heels, I'm so in love with you, mostly anyway. But then you just never can anticipate what happened or what would happen to lead to the breakup of a marriage, right? But then I think the problem comes when there is a struggle, because if it's a very like mutual agreement that you now want to separate and there's no fight, then everything is fine. But a lot of the issues with divorce and all that comes from like struggling
of course,
to either acquire this and acquire that, which I feel like a prenup would have sorted out.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Again, I agree. Of course, every failed marriage probably started off very well, and both sides hopefully thought this was really going to last. Of course, but my point, you have some failed marriages anyway. Yes, that is a risk. Unfortunately, that is true. But my point is, of course, that I think emotionally or psychologically having a prenup already increases the chances this will happen, because somebody,
really?
100%, because somebody in there, maybe both even, already believes, there's a risk, or there I can already see some reasons why this might not last. Or that's my view anyway, psychologically, subconsciously in a way. So it increases the chances for divorce. Sorry.
But I don't want to take us off track this topic. But wouldn't you then say that that's the same for any contract you sign? Because contracts come into place when there's a disagreement. So wouldn't you just enter a business partnership with somebody and then say, oh, I'm not going to sign a contract because I don't think this is
I think you can't really compare marriage and
okay.
business, in my view, because it is slightly different, to be honest.
Okay.
So let's not get into that. Yeah. But
Okay. Sorry.
Any more questions?
Yeah. Preach, Crystal. Oh, there's a lot of people. So I'm going to address, of course, I do understand that the view that we've brought to the table is different from a lot of views, which is fine, because we're all different and we need to embrace our uniqueness and difference. But someone said, I believe equality should honor the masculine and feminine's individual strengths, which I agree with, of course. Men are better suited to provide and protect. Women bring something different to the table. Oh, sorry.
Guys, we have a little visitor.
Wait. Come, let's wait.
All right. Well, you see, guys, we always said in the last videos this might happen. Okay, the boys are obviously sleeping downstairs, and it can happen that obviously they wake up. Now, so far, Keen has only woken up, I think, twice or something. Or once, I think this might be the second time. So yeah, we all knew this was going to happen. But I mean, look, let's get back into the question. I mean, around obviously honor masculinity and femininity. So, of course, right? There's a strong element of this, of course, as well. But I think nowadays, in the way I certainly look at it, right, it is way more individual than rather just based on masculinity and femininity, right? I mean, there are a lot of women who are actually, and I think I've seen even a few comments from you guys as well, are saying, well, I'm actually much better with money than my husband, and I'm taking care of all the finances. I certainly saw at least 2 comments of people saying that, right? So yes, there are certain areas that each partner, and man or woman, should be respected or kind of is maybe better at. But I think what these areas are is slightly changing these days, to be honest with you, right? And I'm not saying it's kind of the complete opposite, that I don't know, all men want to be in the kitchen or something, or like, not at all, right? I'm not being extreme here, but like, I think there needs to be more acceptance that in certain scenarios for certain individuals, right, this can actually be different, to honor somebody's strength and weaknesses. It is not just purely anymore based, I believe, at least on the sex, right? That's at least, again, we're very happy and understand that people will disagree, and that is completely fine. This is the beautiful thing about the world we live in, right? But I guess that's just more our point of view. So let's get some more. Again, apologies for those of you who weren't there just a few minutes ago. Adanna's downstairs right now putting Keen back to sleep. He has just woken up, so this can happen. Okay, so let's see, what else do we got there? How did you guys save or decide who would pay for the wedding? I'm guessing by then you hadn't consolidated your finances yet. Yes, well, the wedding is obviously an interesting piece in our case, because we had 3. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
I'm going to close the door. So Adanna's back.
Sorry,
is he okay?
Put Kian back to bed.
Perfect. So, I had just started answering a question. How did you save for or decide who would pay for the wedding?
Oh, okay.
Now, in our case, of course, it was slightly different because we had 3.
Yeah.
Right now, we didn't fortunately have to pay for all 3, right?
No, we didn't.
That was a beautiful thing.
Have you answered the question?
Not yet.
I
literally just started.
No,
so you go first.
I think I'd mentioned this in a previous video that culturally, as a Nigerian, your parents or your family pay for your traditional wedding as a woman, and if you're a boy, they pay for your church wedding. I think that's kind of how we kind of did it.
Right.
So we already knew off the bat that my parents were responsible for paying for my traditional wedding, which happened in Nigeria. So they paid for that.
Yeah, correct.
And so with that expectation, my dad then thought, well, we've paid for the traditional wedding, so David's family will pay for the church wedding.
Right.
But unfortunately, that wasn't their culture.
Well, I mean, it is in a way. I think our culture, it was a mixture of the different ways. Because in our culture, of course, it is, first of all, we only have one wedding. Okay? So there's no traditional and church wedding, number one. And then before that wedding, both sides kind of contribute. There's no kind of the man only pays or the woman only pays. You know, one family, because there's only one.
Because
in a case where you already have two, yes, you can have that kind of split. One family pays. This is, for us, both sides contribute usually more or less equally, right, to that one wedding. So since we had that in Nigeria, the wedding, actually, then my family kind of organized and wanted to have, obviously, the court wedding in Germany. So they now suddenly took care of that part, right? So they felt, okay, now we've done our duty.
And then we were
and we were like, guys, but where's our wedding, our actual
church wedding, the third one. So I think we quickly realized that, I mean, I was in school then, I wasn't earning any money, so...
We had to get together, like...
It was down mostly down.
I don't know how to put it, but like, if you have a dream, again, I also think, of course, planning, and discipline are so important when it comes to money. I can't stress this enough. I mean, they're generally important in life, but especially when it comes to money, right? Yeah. And of course, so you can mock kind of having sheets or tables or data, whatever, right? But like, it is actually very, very helpful in those moments, especially if you're not super disciplined yourself. Yeah. Having that sort of planning ahead, kind of knowing how much you need by X day in the future, right? And then thinking, okay, so that means, what does it mean for me now every month going forward, you know? Like, how much do you need to put aside? When can I maybe put a bit more aside? When can I put less aside? Like, I think having had that kind of really clear goal in mind, I don't even know sometimes how we did it at the end of the day, right? We just made it happen. We made it happen.
But it was mostly, I think it was just mostly you just being honest, just to answer the question in case like people want to start thinking about, how to navigate this tricky field. Because when it comes to couples and their marriage, their wedding, it's I think that's really when a lot of people face the first hurdle of this finances and the tricky
very true
dynamics. So it was an understanding.
True. All right, do we get some more questions? Who spends more?
Makes more. Okay, so somebody who spends more, and then we can answer the other one. What if the woman makes more? Who spends more money? Well, I think if we're trying to be very like honest, it'd be me, right? But I think, let me tell you the difference. I spend more because of the amount of maybe the individual items I will buy. Let's just say it's more likely, it's likely to be more expensive than the item. But in terms of, so I could buy one thing,
right?
That's obviously, that might be more expensive than the 10 things that you buy.
Correct.
So you buy more stuff, especially when it comes to like household stuff.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, like, a lot of the stuff is for the family.
No, not for the damn. It's not.
It's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's okay.
It's okay. Your stupid toolbox and everything that you're always.
How do you think I use the tools for? To fixing stuff in the house and building things.
How you're excusing it.
Fixed skin's bad today.
But David, when I buy a new bag, I'm buying it to carry my wallet that has the money that I will spend for the family.
No, that is not selling it to me. But look, all I'm gonna say is happy wife, happy life. So. Whatever. What was the other one you said you wanted to do?
What if someone says, what if... Oh, somebody actually said that I was wrong. Apparently, the woman's family doesn't pay for the traditional wedding. They can help if they want, but the husband is responsible for paying both weddings. Okay, in my culture, anyway, this is the way it happens. So maybe that's your culture, but really, my culture, it's the parents that pay for the woman's wedding. Somebody
asked, by the way, in German, Figa Ogbe. I'm not going to read it all out, but she basically asked whether I could provide you with a formula. I mean...
What formula? For what?
No, I think I mentioned earlier the formula to calculate kind of how much maybe we spend or so. I mean, I can think about if I can make it in a way that maybe I can share it, but at the end of the day, it's not really something to share because it's so individual to what you agree with your partner.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So maybe I can you know, if you reach out maybe offline to us or something, I'm happy to share something.
Yeah, but there's a few
keep in mind,
templates that exist.
yeah,
out
but keep
there.
in mind it is really individual to your relationship and what you decide. Right? I mean, there's no one right formula. The point is, whatever you decide to have, if you say, okay, we need to have, I don't know, each $1,000 left at the end of the month or something, right? Then that's your formula, and so you work from there, right? How much do you earn? What are the costs, etc. Right? So it's very hard to kind of give a blank, just but
yeah.
Well, let's have a chat. Maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, I bet there are people who have like formulas for these things or courses or something.
Right. What else?
Should we take a few more questions? And what time is it? Okay. Somebody said. What if the woman makes more, then the man still has to provide? That seems very silly.
Yeah, that's silly, I think.
What do you mean? If the woman makes more, the man has to still provide.
I guess
you both provide.
Well, I'm assuming this is a case in a culture where, you know, the man is expected to provide. So even though the woman earns more, she wouldn't contribute, and the man is supposed to provide everything.
Oh, that's
right?
what they mean.
And that's
yeah,
silly.
I think that's silly. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree, 100%. I think that's very silly.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in cultures where these things are very dominant, you also find that predominantly men make more than their partners.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a system of sexism, it stems beyond your household.
Yeah.
So what are the chances that your wife would even earn more than you? That's almost very unlikely, unfortunately. So,
true.
Yeah.
But that would be silly, yes.
Have you already started to put money on the side for the kids' studies?
Right.
Yes and no. Yes and no, because the funny thing is we recently talked about having a separate account for the kids' education.
Yeah.
But as of now, we have the kids account where, like we said, we run all of the expenses. We've also figured out that every month we don't spend every money in that account, like all the money in the account for the kids, in which case it counts as saving for the kids.
There's already some money accumulated, but
there's money accumulated for the kids, but it's not. It's not a saving for studies.
But it will start soon, as you said. We've talked about it. Will happen soon.
Yeah.
Proper trust fund, or so. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. One last one.
Yeah, okay, go. For the last one, sorry. I thought you were saying your goodbyes.
Oh.
One last question and then we go.
What do you think about supporting parents?
What do you mean supporting parents?
Yeah, I was going to say, in what sense? I mean, of course, if you're in a situation where you can do this and where you can help your parents, I think in our cases we might not quite be there.
Wait, okay, supporting parents. I think so I think that question goes beyond just what both of us are doing now versus what the unspoken expectation is,
Right.
So when it comes to supporting parents, so I did tell you I come from a culture where my parents pay for everything, literally until the day I get married to another man. They're responsible for everything. And in a culture like that, the beauty of it is that you are going into a marriage completely debt free. You're not owing anybody anything, right? Whereas I suppose from your culture, it's more common to take out a student loan,
right?
Relocation, any loan
you're
that
independent
you need.
much earlier.
You're independent.
Yeah. It's not independence. I think where I come from, or the way I grew up, was not dependent on whether you're married or not. Obviously, whether man or woman, by the way, was more by age.
Financially independent.
Yeah, financially independent specifically was more around age, right? I mean, when you get to a certain age, you expect, okay, now let's talk about pocket money. Now you need to start saving.
Yeah.
By 18, it's like, hey,
yeah.
Are you good on your own now?
Exactly.
Kind of.
So the difference is when it then comes to the question was about like supporting parents.
Yes.
Thankfully, our parents don't need your parents, my parents don't need any support from both of us.
Yeah.
But that being said, coming from a culture where everything is taken care of until you start making your own money, there is that feeling of there is the need to give back. Let's just say there is the need to give back. It's an unspoken expectation. It's an unspoken obligation. It's a feeling that comes as well. But anyway, I'll give. Whereas for David, I don't think he has that unspoken obligation. Oh, I'm just sorry that our camera has gone off for a second here. Yeah, I think should we just say goodbye now? I think we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty, but have we come back on?
I think we should be back in a second, guys. But we have also pretty much reached, I think, the end of this video. There we are.
Oh, we're back. Okay, let's say our goodbye, guys.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
I'm just going to end with a comment. Someone said, Adanna, you benefited tremendously from your culture. Amen. I'm so happy. Thanks to my parents, mom and dad. Thank you so much for all of your support.
Absolutely. So thanks again so much for tuning in. Please make sure to obviously leave a comment if you watch the video later again. Subscribe to our channel and our Instagram account, of course, to see way more updates.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week.
You'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much again.
Bye.
Thank you.